Welcome in, Buckeye backers. We are back ready for the college football playoff, baby. I can't believe it's here. It's coming. And we're here to talk some X's and O's. But before that, we got to get this show started with a little intro, baby. Here we go.
Proud of our young people, and most especially in 310 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
No, Prince's going to throw for it. Got to get it off. They go for the ball game. Touchdown! Touchdown! Michael Jenkins on 4th and 1. Holy Buckeye! Under pressure, throws it. Incomplete. The Buckeyes win.
It's so easy to be average. The hell with that. We don't want to coach average. Did you push yourself to be great today? Did you do it? If you didn't do it, you lost today.
Dale Jones gets the snap, fakes a run, drop back to pass, fires long, down the right side, going toward the end zone, and it is caught! Touchdown! And it's Devin Smith again.
Samuel cuts it back. Ohio State wins.
Pitches to Archer Griffin, number 45, and Griffin fighting up the sideline, and he gets it into Michigan territory. A great individual effort across the 20-yard line. Eddie Jordan finds a hole.
Smith in trouble, spins away from it. 40, 45, 50, 35. Troy Smith.
To throw, steps up, delivers deep down the field. He's got a receiver. Olave, touchdown, Buckeyes!
It's going to be a fade to the corner, though, to Smith. Oh, he one-handed it again. How many times is this kid going to do this year?
Howard runs it. First down, Moore slides down inside the 40. Ohio State.
And here we are, talking some football. It's time to just talk X's and O's. There's nothing left to talk about. We don't have to complain about brackets. We don't have to complain about how many tickets are being sold. Let's talk about those X's and O's, baby. So let's get right into it, man. First impression, did you watch some film this week and the last 2 weeks of Tennessee? What do you got?
Yeah, I did. And I think this is a really tough matchup for Ohio State just right out of the gate. I've been saying it all year.
Absolutely.
I really don't know what that rush defense is going to do for Ohio State. And obviously that's the strength of Tennessee. Formation-wise, I think they're going to space you out. I think the defense, that front, I want to say front seven, but really that front four, that D-line is NFL talented. So just really a lot of matchup disasters for Ohio State. What about you?
Yeah, that's the very first thing. You got to stop that D-line. We got to see what this patchwork offensive line does. We got to see what the change around with Luke Montgomery starting at the guard position. So we really just got to see how this offensive line holds up against that strong defensive line, and particularly the defensive end. And I almost think a little bit where Ohio State has more troubles is right up the middle. So the fact that their defensive line is better on the outside holds up a little bit to Ohio State. And you can always, chip with a running back or a chip with a tight end to kind of slow down that defensive pass rush from the ends. That's amazing. But their run defense is good. They're getting pressure from all over the place. I just watched the rest of the Bama game, and they were getting pressure left and right on Bama.
Yeah, and one of the things that really popped out with Pierce, right? I look at a lot of mock drafts, and he's probably been there all along, but it just hasn't been a name that clicks because I'm always looking for Abdul Carter or somebody like that where they're going. And now that you start looking at mocks and you start seeing James Pierce kind of going in the top 15 of mock drafts, it starts to make you realize, okay, this D-end is, high-end first-round graded talent. At least that's what early scouts are saying. I'm sure he'll have a great combine. So when you go up against a guy of that level, you're right. You got to really see that tight end, whether it's Scott or Thurman or somebody chip in. If you're releasing a back out, you're really going to have to support the ends there, especially with Jackson at tackle.
Yeah, and I looked at him, watching him. He looks slender. He looks athletic. He looks, for a DN, fast defensive end, like in Urban Meyer's work. Dude's got a quick first step. You're going to have to get someone out there. You can't have a slow offensive tackle blocking him because he's just going to beat you down the line as quick as that first step is, man. 7.5 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss, leads the SEC with 52 pressures. So dude is going to get there. He's going to have his plays. It's just about limiting them, right?
You have to. And I think that's what you have to look at along this entire defensive line is how do we neutralize that? Mm-hmm. And guess what, Chip Kelly? The answer is not run up the middle, 5-yard hitch, punt. That's not going to be the answer this time around. So it's really going to be about how creative does Chip Kelly get. I mean, he loves that toss play. He loves that jet sweep. I think you run a lot of screens early, get your receivers involved, get their hands warmed on a cool night. So really getting creative early on with the play calling is going to be key. If he starts trying to run a couple plays and then tries a 5-step drop on 3rd and 8, you're playing right into Tennessee wants. You're going to look at 5-6 sacks on that line probably.
Absolutely. Also, he talked about it. He messed up. The man owned up to it and was like, look, we got to make these players and put these players in a position to make plays. And they didn't do that against Michigan. They know that. Hopefully they learned from that. The fact that it took 2 weeks to realize that blows everyone's mind. But get those players some plays. Draw something up for Smith. Throw him the damn ball. I was just watching that. Ryan Williams against Tennessee, he had 15-plus targets. And that was in the 3rd quarter. I don't know how many he had in the 4th quarter. But if Jeremiah Smith has 15-plus targets, no one's going to complain. At least you're trying to get him the ball. I mean, 0 and a whole half is atrocious. So Ohio State has to target their playmakers. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be Jeremiah Smith. Emeka Egbuka has big plays in big games. And it's because they're either doubling or putting their best cornerback on Jeremiah Smith. So like the Oregon game, Emeka Egbuka came out of nowhere, and not really out of nowhere because he should be making those plays. It's just he's had a bad year this year as far as playmaking ability, as far as targets, as far as catches.
He has, and that's where, again, I know it's a little unorthodox, but I would want to see Ohio State on their first possession maybe throw 8 out of the first 10 plays if they have a 10-play drive. I would love to see that. I'm not saying you got to start throwing 60-yard bombs or anything like that, but I'd really like to see – I would start out with that intermediate passing game. I don't want to see another 5-yard hitch. You're going to have them uptight. They're expecting that 3-step drop. Again, I told you over the phone earlier in the week, I'd start the game with a running back screen. I want that D-line here and how great they are, how weak offensive line is. I want them coming up field. I might even throw it a second time because you really put that D-line on its heels when they think they're going to rush you and you throw that screen over. But I'd be looking at slip screens, bubble screens, mixing in that intermediate passing game. Start really getting
please limit the wide receiver screens. That's all I ask.
I don't mind it early on.
Maybe
some kind of slip screen inside. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get that D line off its cadence. You know, when they can hit that gap and they can stop that run early on, and then it's 3rd and 7, they can pin their ears back. You're not going to beat an NFL ready D line doing something like that. So you really have to get creative with the play calling here. And I think there's a lot of pressure on Kelly early on to throw the football.
For sure. Yeah. And he knows it. Everyone in God's earth knows that he should get the perimeter the ball. Get your playmakers the ball. Why you don't in any game, I don't understand. But Keenan Peely is the linebacker for Tennessee that went out. I believe it was like mid-October. He went out maybe game 6, game 5. That's going to be a loss for Tennessee because you're talking about those intermediate passes. I think that crossing route where Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate are going to have a great day. I saw it a lot in the middle of the field. Alabama targeted the middle of the field. Georgia did somewhat, not as much as Alabama, but I think there's yards to be had there.
And that's Ryan Day's bread and butter is those.
That's his wheelhouse, yeah.
It is. The problem is the crossing route does take a little bit of time to develop. It's not as simple as that 3-step drop.
Mm-hmm.
You usually want to see those crossers take place, maybe take 3.5 seconds to fully develop. So again, it's going to be on that offensive line of giving him 3 seconds, maybe even 4 seconds. Not unrealistic, but also not easy against NFL-ready linemen.
I mean, 3.5 seconds is a lot of time.
I know.
A lot of time. I mean, you want the ball out before that.
On 3-step drops, but I mean, if 5-step drops, maybe you kind of zone the field. 3 seconds is not unrealistic. You start getting into the 4 and 5 range, that's pretty tough.
I feel the opposite, Josh. So Gurley comes in saying this game means more to the Vols. I think it means more to the fans to be there. The fact that they're back, it means more that they're legitimate again. People are talking about the Vols. People know that they exist. But it means more to Ohio State because of what just happened. They have to win this game. Maybe the Vols could play more loose. They could play more open because it's not their butts against the wall, man. It's not, hey, there's a possibility we're getting fired if we don't win this game.
Yeah, I mean, not that I think this will happen, but let's say Ohio State wins 42-7, right? Josh Heupel's not fired. Nobody's fired on Tennessee.
Correct.
Highly unlikely score, but I'm just giving you an extreme example. Ryan Day loses. We have a whole different conversation Sunday morning. So means more. I mean, you can take that a lot of different ways. I think both sides, as far as players and coaches, want to win. I think they're hyped up for a playoff game. But if you're talking who needs this game more, it's absolutely Ohio State needs it more.
Bradley's back. What's up, gentlemen? Ohio State against the world. It is. It always is. Always will be. I mean, check out Twitter lately, man. Vols Twitter is all over Ohio State, and so is everyone else. I mean, Michigan's joining in. They're like posting memes, shaking hands, and flag planting together. It's good stuff, man. I love that banter online. But yeah, everyone is against Ohio State, and that's the way it should be because we've been successful for so long. I mean, and people love it when Ohio State's down. They love to see Ohio State lose. And I think a lot of that is because Ohio State has been successful, but also lost a lot of big games. So people are like, they don't belong here. They're unnecessarily ranked high. And that we get that a lot. I understand that. But Ohio State's been competitive lately. There was a time, where Ohio State didn't belong there when the SEC was running their dominance. We'll see if that's still the case. That's what's nice about this playoff system. And I'm going into a rabbit hole. I do like that. We're getting a lot of different representation from a lot of different leagues. And you never know how good a league is till the best of the best play at the end of the season.
It doesn't even define your league either, to be honest with you. I don't think it'll happen, but if an ACC team, or let's just say Arizona State, I'm being fluky here, they win, it doesn't mean the Big 12's in a league conference this year, or the ACC is top to bottom. They don't have the same level of talent. No. It doesn't mean a team wins 3 games, gets hot, and wins it all. I mean, that's the beauty of a playoff system. Is all you have.
But it does mean the representation belongs, and that's my problem with the old system. Like you had no chance. Those years there were 2 SEC teams in the national title game. No other league had a chance. Like you have to have some representation to know if you belong, where you belong. And I love that about the 12-team playoff, that every conference is going to have some representation, and even some of the small guys get in there too. But let's get back to the X's and O's. We said this is what it's going to be all about. We will talk a little bit about ticket prices later on, maybe some Vegas stuff. And we got our first bowl in here. Titan, go Big Orange. Yeah, man. How many do you think there's going to be in the stadium? Like legitimately, how many Bulls fans
30?
Do you think are going to make it?
35. I'd probably
1,000?
guess. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 35,000.
30. These ticket prices are nuts, man. I can't even believe it. I don't want to get into that.
Blowing up my phone today, man, with them.
It's crazy. It's just insane to me. But let's talk some football first. So we're talking mainly Ohio State offense against Tennessee defense. McCoy is a physical quarterback or cornerback. He's a dude, and they have that freshman safety. I don't even remember his name. He's also a stud. But other than that, their back seven, I don't think can match up with Ohio State's receivers. But what we did talk about a little bit earlier, it's going to come down to that defensive line versus that offensive line, because you can make up for a lot of coverage lacking with the defensive line that gets after the quarterback. Also, how much time is Howard going to have back in that pocket? You said something like 3.5 to 4 seconds to throw a crossing route.
3.5. 3 to 3.5 is what I'd want.
Yeah, 3 to 3.5 maybe. Vols travel well. Ohio State typically travels well, and Ohio State typically doesn't let prices for top 10 matchups go down into the hundreds of dollars, like the low hundreds. You can get a ticket on the 40-yard line for $225 right now. In ADEC, that's usually like an $800 to $1,000 ticket.
But that's
10 matchup.
I think if you want to take a slight pivot here, in the fact that we could sit here and dissect X's and O's, offense, defense, talk about Tennessee, really the strength with the run game, wondering if Ohio State's going to be able to establish the run game. I actually look at this game, and I very rarely do this, and say this is actually really a first half game only. And what I mean by that is you're seeing it with ticket prices, you're seeing it with the fan base, you're seeing it with the conversation. We're all holding our breath, and we've been holding our breath since November 30th. We haven't released it yet. And I think it is critical for this Ohio State team to come out on that first drive and score a touchdown. And I never say that about football. It is a 60-minute game. So many things can happen in a game. It's absurd to think going out 3 and out on a punt on your first drive dictates the game. It's psychological warfare at this point. You have everybody who's tight. They've heard it for 2 weeks. They've had everything going on. You need to come out, and you need to come out hot if you're Ohio State, because I'll tell you, if it's the third quarter and this game's 10-10 in the third quarter and everyone's in the offense is not clicking, you're going to see a hostile Ohio State crowd. It is going to tighten that team up. So to me, I think this game can be won in the first half if you're Ohio State and you come out and you put up, let's say 21, 24 points. Not easy. Don't freak out, Tennessee fans. I'm just saying I think this game is more psychological than numbers at this point, and Ohio State's going to have to prove that they can put up the offense, and by doing so, I think the game comes to them. But if this is a tied game in the third quarter, I think Tennessee wins.
So you said, well, wait, what would you do? Would you take the ball first? If you win the toss?
I would, and this goes against everything I believe. One, I think you always play to the strength of your team, which in this case in Ohio State, I do still think it's the defense. And two, I love getting the ball at the second half, especially if you can double dip in the second quarter. So I typically always defer. However, in this particular game, if I win the coin toss, Ohio State needs to take the ball, because you drive down that field and you score a touchdown, you will hear the biggest sigh of relief in that stadium you've ever heard. Everyone will say, okay, this is what we remember. We're back. We're feeling it. Especially you march down with Tennessee.
Yeah, but if you don't, then it's, oh, damn it. This
high
again.
Risk, high reward.
This is, see, I think you take the momentum, the psychology of the team, and you get that defensive stop to start. You're always a slow starting team. You don't score quickly. I think Tennessee's probably a second half team too. I don't know for sure, but from what I saw of it, they seem to turn it on in the third and fourth quarter when Dylan Sampson's shoving it down people's throats.
But that's a little bit different. You've softened the defense at that point in time, and then your run game dominates. That's a little bit different.
But I think this is where Ohio State needs to establish their dominance, show that they can stop this team quick and early, maybe even get a turnover if you get lucky, and then come down and score right away. I think you set up the offense with your defense at this point, and you trust in your strength. That's where I go with it. I'm always a defer to second half of the ball, because it takes a while to get in the groove of a game anyway. Some teams come out and they fire right away. Oregon's one of those teams that come out, boom, they're ready to go. Ohio State's just not designed like that. They're not one of those teams that comes out firing. And I don't know why, but they're just not. And they haven't been all year, and I don't think it's going to change on Saturday.
I mean, that's been...
As far as Bradley said, the secondary is the weakness of the Orange defense. I think the back seven would be the weakness, but particularly the linebackers first. Then they do have a couple good guys back there in the secondary. It's just I don't think they have a full unit.
But that's again, it's not even about the strength or weakness. You saw Will Johnson out in the Michigan game, their best cornerback.
Yeah.
This isn't about X's and O's. This is psychological. This is play calling at this point. Can Jeremiah Smith beat 98% of the DBs one-on-one? Yeah, he can. Can Howard get him the ball? Can they execute? That I don't know. So to me, it's not about DB matchup versus wide receivers or secondary matchup or anything like that. It's what is Chip Kelly going to do to get his playmakers the ball and instill Will Howard with confidence?
Brian says, get out on Tennessee just like Georgia in 2022.
Yes.
So you're talking about Ohio State against Georgia in 2022 when they came out firing.
Run. And they were up points multiple times in that game. I think it was 21-7, 38-24 at one point. And that Georgia team was elite. That was an absolute elite football team, clearly the best team in the country. But Brian makes a great point. That is the MO you got to have in this game. You jump out.
But we also had C.J. Stroud behind center.
They did,
and,
that Georgia
and not a patchwork offensive line either.
They were so good. And they proved that, man, by putting up, all those points, in the second half.
That's one of the things where Day is really good when he has a long time to prepare, when he can put in the full offense, when he can practice what he needs and get everyone healthy. The biggest problem with Ohio State right now is they are not healthy. I mean, that offensive line is, you take the best two offensive linemen in the nation, two of the best, Remington Award winner, probably a first round draft pick at left tackle, take them out of the game and out of multiple games, you have problems, man. For any team. Indiana's had that same problem. They lost two linemen.
I'm even seeing Simmons being mocked in the first round, which I find a little surprising. I would have liked to have seen a full year of work really from him. But yeah, you're talking two first,
He hasn't declared yet. He may. It's just possible he may come back. Doug's being a regular. Bradley and Doug are coming back quite often.
I
Josh
do
Gurley, obviously.
About getting trivia on the ball in space. I love it. And I told
Absolutely.
You flat out.
That's where the screen. That's who needs that screen to start the game.
I'm telling you, if I'm Chip Kelly at first play of game, I'm calling the screen to Henderson. And I'm doing that because I want that defensive line thinking the entire game, all right, what are they going to throw at us? What are they going to do? Right between the ears. Not sure. But hey, that's
I'm
again.
not following that, Brian. But
yeah, I'm not following. I'm sorry, man. Again, I keep thinking in this game as we've been preparing all week, kind of talk about this game and look at it. I keep seeing the numbers. I keep seeing the stats. I think it's going to be a really close game and a very good game, but I keep coming back to I know where I'm going to be at 5:00 Saturday night, Pacific Coast time, y'all. I know it's 8:00. And watching that game, and in my head, I'm going to be watching that first series and saying, okay, how did you rectify the mistakes you made against Michigan? That's what I need to see.
Yeah,
and
that's
we
what you want to see right away.
20 minutes into the game, and it's 3-3 or 7-3 Tennessee. We're going to be sitting there thinking, all right, this is going to implode. So you have to come out guns blazing. I don't know, script your 15 best plays, Chip Kelly, install them right now, and just throw caution to the wind.
Yeah, and that's what Chip Kelly's known for, getting players the ball in space, spreading out the field. A run game that gets outside. Just not something he did in the last game, but he's done it. He did it against Oregon. He had one of the best play calling games of his life. I mean, they played Oregon well. The defense didn't hold up their bargain, and that's kind of one of the things they talked about when you were at the Woody. The defense was like, we're not blaming Ohio, or we're not blaming the offense. We're a team. We had our bad game, and we didn't win the game. Last time I checked, we didn't win, right?
Yeah.
That quote from Knowles when he was just like, last time I checked, we didn't win. So, no, we didn't play well enough.
That's what I want to hear. And that's, again, we're not going to squabble about offense or defense. At the end of the day, neither side made the plays they had to make to win the game.
Doug will be there. Hey, Doug, enjoy the cold, man. I think a lot of people aren't going for that reason. But I will be there too.
No, I don't think it's anything, man. I think right now, Ohio State, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't think it's the cold. I don't think it's anything. I don't think it's Tennessee fans buying up, although they have a great fan base. I think right now, nobody wants to go.
Bradley, go, man. The tickets, you're never going to have a game like this ever again in your life, or the tickets are this cheap. It's a top 10 game. It's historical. Just spend the money and go. It's going to be worth it. And wait till game day. They keep dropping. So I think in 2 days, you're going to get a ticket that's right around $100.
Yeah, and I could get it, dude. If it was, let's say it was 38 degrees and raining. Man,
oh yeah, he's in South Florida. Dude, just take the trip, man. Bundle up.
Oh,
bundle
Florida,
up and go.
Fine. You can go Miami, Lauderdale. I mean, you can fly up to Columbus.
Yeah, if the metrics are true and Tennessee shows up with 40 to 50% of the stadium being orange, what kind of message does that send to the Ohio State players, and will it affect their gameplay? If they show up with 40 to 50%, probably it'll affect their gameplay. I mean, just in sound alone, that might make a difference.
I mean, you've got to have that fighter mentality. You got to, I mean, there's a reason we have this Ohio against the world, right? You got to have that mentality that everything's going to go against you, that chip on your shoulder. If I was a player and I came out and it was 50-50, I'd be like, this fan base doesn't believe in us anymore. Let's go shove it down their throats. Let's go prove them wrong. Let's go prove everybody wrong. That's the kind of mentality you need to win championships. Again, go back to 2014, underdog against Wisconsin, Alabama, Oregon. You were the underdog. Urban Meyer's telling you you're being disrespected by everybody. What do? They go on and win. So you got to take whatever chip, whatever edge you can get in a game like this. I don't care if it's 50-50. Again, if Ohio State plays to the talent on paper and their coaching staff plays to what we have seen them do in their real life, they should win this game. However, this is a psychological game at this point.
Yes, it is. It's history in the making. Yeah. If I made, I'm mad. I paid as much as I did because the prices are dropping, and it's only money. But it's only money. Yeah, I get that. The prices are dropping. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but we're going to take a quick break real quick and get to one of our sponsors and then get back to Ohio State's defense versus Tennessee's offense. So real quick, let's get one in here. And since it's going to be cold, we'll bring in the Icy Breeze, baby.
Icy Breeze is the world's first portable air conditioner and cooler. A premium ice cooler that doubles as an eco-friendly portable air conditioner. This is not a swamp cooler, just blowing air across ice. Over 60 parts and components allow Icy Breeze to achieve what no other product in the world can do. The secret behind the Icy Breeze is an innovative design that circulates chilled ice water through a heat exchanger in the lid, replacing the Freon used in most ACs. Fresh air is drawn from hidden vents in the top of the cooler, pulled across the exchanger, and chilled down to 35 degrees cooler than the outside air. A 3-speed fan control delivers Icy Breeze's dry, cold air up to 25 miles per hour, just like a car AC. And a stay-put flex hose directs the breeze in any direction. Wherever you need it, Icy Breeze helps you beat the heat.
Oh yeah, baby. Icy Breeze. Here we go. All right, we're back. So we want to talk a little bit more about how Ohio State is going to target this, or actually how Ohio State's defense is going to keep this Tennessee offense from scoring on them. First thing I want to point out was the splits. They've been talking about it a lot. Splits, tempo, and that stack wide receiver lineup that they split them way out there. So first, what do you want to talk about? Splits, offensive line splits?
Surprise me. Let's go.
Offensive line splits. Let's get there. First impression on that. Did you see how wide they are?
No, I was actually going to Google it. I should have not said surprise me because that was the one I wasn't prepared for.
That was the one you didn't want to talk about.
Yeah, that was the one I didn't want to talk about. I actually would like to see it a little bit more. Walk me through a little bit of the rationale behind why the linemen are split so far out.
To me, I think it's more of a zone running game so that you can get in position for blocking and just to space the team out. Like it goes along with the tempo. The wider you get them, get lined up quick, the defense is going to be spread out even more. So I think it's just one of those things that came with the Art Briles offense. Other than that, I don't really know. Just to change things up, maybe.
I mean, that's fine, and zone blocking can be really tricky, but you're going to have to get that fast first step. You're going to have to hit that gap well to get in the backfield. But, I mean, zone blocking is tough to go with. You're really going to need that linebacker spot really filling in those gaps pretty quickly if you're going to diffuse zone run. So,
and then the linebackers have to spread out a little bit more, and the defensive line has to spread out a little bit more. It's just taking up more space on the field, so they can spread the defense out, and then you have the holes, the gaps.
Yeah, I think that's the greater concern ultimately is when you start looking at that 3-4 wide receiver spreads. And we saw this again. You've seen it a lot in a couple of games, especially against Marshall and a few other games with Oregon as well, too. When you start taking that out, you start putting 6, maybe 5 even in that box, and you got a helmet on helmet. And that's when Tennessee can be extremely dangerous.
For sure.
But
the other part I wanted to talk about was how their wide receivers line up. We talked about this a little bit prior to, and it was they got the X wide receiver or the deepest wide receiver almost to the sideline. And then the slot receiver inside is outside the hash marks, actually. So they're pretty darn deep, and it's not very far from, the boundary wide receiver, or what I would call the X.
Yeah, and that's I don't really know concept-wise, because when you start getting that wide receiver closer and closer to the sideline, you really do start reducing or limiting routes and options there. And when you I have looked at that a few times and taking that's where I'm going to be really curious if Knowles has the ability to switch to zone, because when you start seeing that type of formation, you really want to switch that zone coverage, especially kind of a cover 2 zone where you can have that DB in the flats. Sorry, you're throwing me off with the comments, but having that DB kind of sitting in the flats, you have that safety cover 2 over top. So you're kind of neutralizing potentially any quick pass out to the boundary there, any slant, anything like that. But again, I think if you're at Tennessee, you're going to utilize those formations in order to establish the run game. And I keep thinking more and more as you start looking at just Tennessee, where they are rushing on the year, you start looking at prop bets, right? And you start seeing they're not even giving you odds on Sampson until 89.5 yards, which is actually pretty surprising when you're looking at prop bets. And what everybody's looking at here is Tennessee's going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball quite effectively. They're going to get a lot of yards. More and more now, I keep thinking, okay, Jim Knowles isn't really going to stop him outside of the 20. This is going to be a red zone defense.
Yep. And that's what Ohio State has played historically this year, I guess, historically. But I want to get to this. Jason Johnson says, just play the 3-3-4. You know what? The 3-3-4 is very susceptible to the run. There's a lot of big run holes in that. And that was designed more for that air raid type offense in the Big 12, where Briles was, where Knowles was before at Oklahoma State. I don't think that's a good idea against Sampson. Sampson's going to run all over a 3-3-4 defense.
He wants you to run a 3-3-4, which, by the way, 3-3-5, because he's got a Tennessee logo. He wants you to, because that means they're going to run down the field. And honestly, I think if you played a 4-3, I still think Tennessee's going to get their rushing yards this game. I really don't see a way that you're going to neutralize Tennessee's run game. I think what Knowles is going to do is the bend, don't break mentality.
I think they got to sell out to stop Sampson. That dude is the heart and soul of that team. You stop him, you stop the team. He averages, well, I don't know what his average were, but let me pull that up. He has 100 and almost 120 yards about every game. But the teams that kept him lower than 100 yards were some random team. I can't remember. It was like UTEP or something, or University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, but he must have come out early in that game. It was Georgia, I think, held him to 92 yards. Let me see this for sure. And it was Alabama held him to 138. and Arkansas 139. Have this.
I mean, you're
in
not
the games that they
holding-
lost, he was held under 150 yards. 138 against Arkansas, 101 against Georgia. Close games, 139 against Bama, 92 against Oklahoma. So 92, Oklahoma actually did the best. They had a great run defense and a great defense in general. He was held to 101 yards against the Gators where in regulation, and then got another 11 in overtime. So I think Ohio State has to hold him under 120 yards to have a chance of winning this game.
a 100-yard game is really good.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, you hold somebody to 100 yards. That's not holding them. That's a really good game. So you're right, and he's just gonna get his yards. I'm not gonna sit here and say Ohio State's front four is really gonna stop him. To Bradley's
4-2-5.
They run their 4-2-5 pretty common. That's kind of their base formation at this point in time, and that's where again when you start spreading out a little bit more. You start seeing that linebacker start creeping outside the box. And yeah, it's technically 6 in the box, but a lot of times it looks like 5. And if that's the case, he's going to have a field day. And it's really, again, I think they're going to give him that 8, 10, 12-yard run from time to time. It's going to be, okay, when you get to the 18-yard line, this is when we're going to bow up and stop you.
Ohio State is really the best defense in the country. I mean, top scoring defense, top total defense. So I think they stick with what they got. The 4-2-5 is good for Ohio State, and that's what they have built their defense around. That's what's going to work. That's what they're going to do. I mean, they're not going to get out of that. Number 1 in points per game. Yeah, Bradley, exactly.
And the 4-2-5, again, similar to a 3-3, 4-2-5s and 3-3-5s, they're susceptible to the run. And you saw this throughout the year. And this is where the numbers can be deceiving, right? Where people talk about how good Ohio State's rush defense is. Your rush defense is always going to be good when you're up 14, 21, 28 points in games and teams are throwing the ball in the second half. So it's kind of a deceptive number in terms of.
What did Caleb Johnson have against Ohio State? Not a whole lot. I think he barely broke 100 at the very end of the game.
That's a little bit different. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and analyze that film. I can't say they were running a 4-2-5 that whole game, but I'm not really worried about Iowa's wide receivers, burning me down the field. I can stack a little bit more in the box. So a little bit of a different. Tennessee has much more talent at the wide receiver position than Iowa.
Yeah, Bradley says yes at the end of the game.
He had 86. He had 86 in that game, which is not bad.
Yeah, that's one thing we noticed about Tennessee. Their deep ball percentage is terrible. Always overthrown. Nico.
Just go Nico I, man.
Nico I.
Man.
I had it earlier, man, but I lost it.
I'm not. I don't want to.
Iamaleava.
Man, I'm just going to say Nico I. He's a freshman, though. I mean, that'll come with time.
Iamaleava. There we go. Got it. Iamaleava. Say it 3 times. Iamaleava. I don't
want to be disrespectful, but that'll come with time, and maybe they don't hit on that. But I'll tell you what, if I'm playing against Ohio State, I'm probably throwing 3 to 4 deep balls a game just because of Ignosin and Burke. I don't trust them on the outside. So
yeah. One of the things also that I noticed against some of the other teams that Tennessee played, those offensive tackles are their weak spot on the offensive line too. I believe. Can't remember if it was their left or right offensive tackle. I think it was their left offensive tackle. Has like 11 penalties on the year. He's one of the highest penalized players. So that tells me a lot of holding, a lot of grabbing. His footwork is not great. Can't get there to a speed defensive end rusher. And Ohio State, I wouldn't necessarily call either of our defensive ends speed defensive end rushers. They can get there, but they're mostly, pushing through. Sawyer's just going to push through you. Or do a spin move. And Ohio State's been doing a lot more looping, a lot more changing up on the defensive line. So a lot more stunning, at least of lately. So I think they'll get after Nico for sure.
They will. And that was something I did see where Tennessee is 3rd worst in the nation in penalties per game. It's not a stat I really like to play into because it really ties into the officiating crew. If you got an officiating crew that loves to float flags, that's a huge factor in this game. If you got one that says, hey, we want to let them just play it out, which I am more of a proponent of play it out versus flags, then that kind of neutralizes.
There we go. It's the false starts. And they've had a lot of drive killers that way, too. Ended drives just on penalties. I did notice that. Ransom's the MVP of the game. Coming from Doug, because Doug was talking about Lathan Ransom having a couple forced fumbles. He's mastered punching out the ball. I hope so, man. If any dude deserves it, it's him. Watching him talk about how it would be, he wasn't projecting anything, but how it would be if he did return to the Rose Bowl, because that's where he broke his leg. It would be an emotional coming home party, so to speak. So, yeah, jumping off sides. Well, I hope he does it a lot, man. I hope our crowd shows up and it's not mostly Tennessee fans and he jumps off all the time. Couldn't agree more, Doug. Facts. Yeah, Doug's bringing it. MVP. I knew what you meant. Tackles are the weak link on the offensive line. Titan says Titan must be a Vols fan. I think he did say when he first came in. Yeah, it was the Go Big Orange, which I had never heard until now. Until Ohio State started, really talking to the Tennessee fans. Go Big Orange.
I hope this starts, just playing some more in the regular season. I forget, I don't have the number exactly, but it was the 90s was the last time these two teams played. They're not that far away. I would love to see.
I think it was 95.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I was going to say 94, but yeah, it was mid-90s. And I don't understand. They're not that far away. Why are you not playing this game a little bit more? I think it'd be fun. It's a great fan base, great system, obviously on the rise. Mm-hmm. Get it on the calendar.
Yeah, that's a true point. And we pointed that out in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, at least. Ohio State opponents are the least penalized in the nation. Don't know why, but that penalty differential is terrible for Ohio State. Ohio State doesn't get penalized much. They were among the tops in the nation. I think they were in the top 20 range. 16. I believe they were 16. And Tennessee, though, was 120th. I believe they had 8.5.
Ohio State is ninth in the nation in penalties per game at 4.3. Yep.
Okay. So, and I believe it was 68 yards a game. Tennessee was 120th in the nation.
Yeah, they were 120. Ohio State is 16 with yards.
Yeah.
Again, you got to chalk a lot of those up to PIs. That's really where they're getting their penalties.
Yeah, and Igbinosa at one time, I don't know if he still is, was the most penalized player in the nation.
I want to get to Jason's comment here real fast. This is a good one. Tennessee defense makes good changes during halftime. This is essential for Ohio State. We have railed on Dave for years that
not making adjustments at all.
Adjust at halftime. And, Jason's coming in telling us the Tennessee perspective where apparently their defensive coordinator believes in halftime adjustments. That's critical. So
I believe in first half adjustments. You should be adjusting after the first drive. But if you don't at halftime, that boggles my mind. How do you get paid millions of dollars to not make adjustments?
I could see subtle in the first half. It's really tough to try to change some things up while you're on the sideline.
But you come in, that's why you huddle on the sidelines and you're talking to your defensive coordinator, should be up in the stands, which he is. So why aren't you making those adjustments?
I mean, the adjustment.
It's not like that. The offensive coordinator needs to do it too. I'm not just saying defensive coordinator.
Oh, I agree. And that's where the adjustments in game prior to halftime or after halftime, that's okay. Cut this route off here. You're running to this spot. Let's cut it to this spot because where they're falling back to, or they're showing us a completely different look. Here's the holes, or let's do this because they're playing man more. Those are the little adjustments. You go into halftime and you say, okay, take whatever we have, throw it out the window. This is what we're going to install here in the second half because we think this will work.
Bradley, I had this exact conversation with Tim May while we were waiting for Will Howard to come to the podium before the Michigan game. And he was like,
Good point.
The most penalized guy in the nation. I think he was the one that brought it up to my attention. But I was like, he's always in the right spot. He's athletic as hell. He just grabs. Even though he doesn't need to, he grabs onto the jersey. And yes, he just needs to turn around and look for the ball. If he did, he wouldn't be grabbing on the jersey because he'd be looking at the ball. He's just grabbing. That's what he does. I did notice the DBs on Ryan Williams for Bama. They were tugging on him quite a bit, and a lot of them weren't called. There was 2 passes to the end zone to Ryan Williams. I think it was in the second or third quarter in a row. They weren't called. 2 passes in a row. So it depends on what kind of referees we got. I don't know how the SEC referees are, if they're less flag happy than the Big Ten, but
it
doesn't seem to be.
It won't be an SEC crew.
No, it's ACC crew. It's an ACC crew.
It would be a neutral party. Honestly, I hope it doesn't come to that. And I don't want a penalty field unless you're dragging a receiver down, right? You got to throw a flag. Or again, you're not getting your head turned around. You got to throw a flag. I don't blame the refs for throwing that on Igbinosun, and that's just better DB play. But a lot of the
I guess we got consensus here because Doug's like, yeah, Igbinosun is aggravating because he grabs receiver and he doesn't have to, and Bradley's couldn't agree more. So we're all on the same page. What were you going at?
No, the penalties on Igbinosun are real. No true Buckeye fan would be arguing that he's getting gypped or anything like that. He's not. He's got.
I'm worried that he will because he's got a reputation now.
You get the head around. I think you'll be all right. But you're right. He's in great position. He's just not doing all aspects of what you need to do to defend. And you're right. He's got a reputation. He's probably going to get one.
Yeah. To me, it does not seem like he looks people off. Nico.
Yeah, he's talking about Nico.
He needs to work on his pre-read and throwing people open. I can agree with you with that. But looking off the safety comes with that. Seems to lock in a little bit.
This is a freshman.
I think he needs to run. He's a redshirt freshman. But yeah, I think he needs to run more.
Is he a redshirt?
He do a lot more damage.
I thought I just saw freshman list.
Yeah, because he played against Iowa last year in the bowl game.
Okay, my bad. That's still not a lot of seasoning. And again, in high school, when you're a really good quarterback, you look at whoever you want and you throw the ball, you're probably going to connect in high school if you're playing D1. You can do that in high school, even in some college games. So that just comes with growth and development, but he's got a hell of an arm.
Yeah, and he came into Ohio State's camp wearing his wife beater, and Ohio State wanted him. Tennessee just offered him more money. And that was kind of in the beginning days where Ohio State wasn't really throwing money at people yet. They were saying, we're Ohio State. We're not going to do that. You're going to earn it when you play. So Tennessee, I think, bought him, and he's there doing well. So that was a good pickup for them. Good foresight then to just be like, you know what? We're just going to start paying people because we can. He's a good quarterback. Yeah, he's 6'6". I mean, and he's fast. Like when he runs and when he gets in the open field, he's got moves too. He can plant that leg and go the other direction real quick.
Yeah,
he's just young, man. He's going to have those plays where he makes bonehead plays. He's going to force the ball sometimes. He's also going to look down his receiver. So it gives our defensive back some time to catch up with the ball, when it's in the air, because you know where it's going. Like he's not looking off and then throwing back. But that comes with time. Levi, what's up, fellas? Much love from Tennessee. Levi is all over the place. I believe this is the Levi from Twitter, too. So he's the one that got a lot of attention for posting about the ticket sales for Tennessee. Is that right? Correct, Levi? He's good, runs a lot faster, looks good running. I couldn't agree more. I think that's where they need to focus. If we're stuffing the run against Samson, then he needs to start taking off too. If I were them, I'd run a lot of zone read.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely.
Levi says, nope, not I. There's a Levi on Twitter that is all over.
I appreciate the honesty.
Twitter. Yeah,
I appreciate the honesty there.
Give you some credit, brother.
Yeah, that's good. And that's where, again, we're not going to sit here. We watched some film on Tennessee, but I haven't watched all the games they played this year. We're going to get into that a little bit with the props, Doug, about Will Howard. And this is, again, where if Will Howard was a redshirt freshman or a sophomore, I'd be a little bit concerned. This is a fifth-year guy. And so if Kelly can derive a game plan around, let's get the ball out of your hands. Let's get it to the playmakers. Let's get you 8 for 8, 9 for 9 for 75 yards, right? Nothing extreme, but just kind of get him into a rhythm early. They're going to get it all back.
Yeah. This is an interesting comment. Pierce, we know the DN. If you get your hands on him, he's done. Can't disengage. Yeah, but he's just so damn fast.
He is, and what little I saw, and I'm not trying to be too extreme with this, kind of remind me of Myles Garrett a little bit. Just that twitchy, bendy. They call it bendy quite a bit because of the way they maneuver around. Just really athletic and talented. But Jason, good insight about him not being able to disengage. That's a little surprising.
That's why, I mean, Travion Henderson is a hell of a blocker. Let that man get a chip shot. And he's quick enough, athletic enough to just get in the way.
But I remember calling you a few weeks on the phone, and I think it was after the Northwestern game, and I was streaming this at you. They were not chipping the right end on Donovan Jackson at all, and that was Northwestern. They weren't chipping. They weren't helping. You saw it a little bit in some other games with Donovan Jackson. Yeah, he's doing a heck of a job out there. All good left tackles need help. I mean, the defensive linemen, especially first-round graded, talented defensive linemen, they can get to the quarterback. So I want to see a little bit of that, and I don't want to say more because I haven't seen really any of it.
Yeah, and Bradley's mentioning Penn State's defensive end. I believe that's who you're talking about.
Yeah, Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter is comparable. Who knows if Bradley's going to have if Pierce is going to have a better NFL career than Abdul Carter. He might. I think he's almost as good. I think he's got to put on a little bit more weight, get a little bit stronger, it seems to me. But he's a real deal.
The first DN off the board in the NFL draft in 25. Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
He's a freak, man.
Yes, sir. All right. Anything else in particular? So we had the wide splits, the tempo. The tempo is a big thing. Ohio State's defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, said, this is how our defense was designed. It's designed to stop tempo because that's what they had in the Big 12. When he was at Duke, Cutcliffe was like, hey, you need to be the defense that calls their play the fastest in the nation. Gets her play in the fastest. And that's what they wanted to do. That's how they're designed. So he's got tons of experience in dealing with the tempo. Tennessee is a tempo team, but not quite like they have been in the years past. When they had Hendon Hooker, they were extreme tempo, even on third down. They seem to slow down on third down to try to get the right play call. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. Ohio State's been practicing it. They said that they put a group of 11 guys next to the team that was scout team. So they had a second scout team ready to go in, already lined up. So they had to switch after the play was over, go over to the other field, line up, and be ready to go. And then sometimes they made them turn around, have a team line up, and then turn back around and line up. So they were practicing having to line up quick. And Carter was the dude for sure. All right, here we go. Titans hoping Mike Matthew gets more playing time in this game. I honestly don't know who Mike Matthew is.
He is a wide receiver, 7 catches, 90 yards, 2 TDs. Looks like a freshman, maybe a red shirt. ESPN keeps screwing me on not putting RS next to somebody. But
TJ. Bars in Columbus. Man, it's been a long time since I've been bar hopping, especially in Columbus. So I would start going to, if you can, go to Dublin, which is on the east side. It is a suburb, and there is Urban Meyer's 7-0 pint club. I can't even remember what it's called. I've only been there once, but it's awesome. It's cool to see. Something nice. I would start there maybe earlier in the day, work your way back to campus. Some of the campus bars you won't be able to go in, but you definitely want to go to the Varsity Club. So that is going to be right off of Lane Avenue, and it's really close to the stadium. So you'll be able to find that one. What else is over there that's cool? There's basically like tailgating bars that you can go into. It's like what used to be Heine Club and Heine Gate. I think that's still there, but everything's kind of changed around. And honestly, I won't be partaking because I'm kind of working during the game. So I won't be into that, but it would be cool. It's always a good atmosphere. I think the Vols will use a lot of tight end in this game with bubble screens, the open side of the field. I'm assuming you mean the wide side of the field. I wish Ohio State would do that to the wide side of the field. They like to do it to the short side of the field for some reason.
And that's where, again, with Tennessee, you look at kind of the throwing or the offensive side.
Sloops, let's go Buckeyes! Hell yeah, OH man.
They're 76th in the nation in offensive passing yards. If I'm Tennessee, I don't think you have to get hyper creative here until you get inside the 20. I look at this and I really do not believe Ohio State is going to effectively stop Tennessee's run game. And I would be very run heavy till I get to the 20, where hypo and the creativity is going to come in is what are you going to do in the red zone against one of the best red zone defenses in the country. So, if you want to come out and start throwing some screens again, I really don't know Tennessee's true offense. But if it was me, I wouldn't get over creative based on what I saw. I think that run game is extremely deadly.
Oh, you know what we found out in the press conference too? That pick that Jack Sawyer had, that was him improvising. That was not a called play for him to drop back into coverage. He just did it.
Then I'm going to go on the record because I railed on that a couple weeks ago. I will apologize to Jack Sawyer because I gave Knowles the credit for that play call. That's on Sawyer. That DN dropping, I absolutely love it because a quarterback is not expecting that at all.
For sure.
So if he improvised that, first off, Jim Knowles is going to kick your ass for improvising that, I'm sure. But he's also
not at all. He was like, man, he did it. I didn't call it. He gave him credit.
I joke. I mean, then I tip my cap to Sawyer. I'll be the first to admit I was wrong there. I apologize. Good on you, Sawyer. Hell of a play call.
Kitzelman gets a lot of action off the play action.
I tell you what, I am diving real deep into this Tennessee roster.
Depth chart. I don't know that dude either.
Klitzman, 6'5" senior from
Into this, we're getting into what happens today after.
No. We're not putting those vibes out in the universe. We're gonna have a Sunday morning show.
We'll talk about that Sunday morning if that's the case.
We're all going to decide release Sunday morning or it's fire and brimstone, just like church. Either way,
we are
the Sunday.
Sloops, we're heading to Pasadena. All right, man. Just get it through your head. Going in the hot sun in Pasadena, baby.
And that's what people are talking. When Ohio State fans are talking about, I want to go Rose Bowl, I want to go national title, and they're saying, well, don't overlook Tennessee. It's a tough game. I think we all got to stop and realize. 12 best teams in the country are in this playoff. Every single game, no matter what you're playing, is going to be a tough game. Even, SMU, Penn State, right? I think SMU's tired of being underdogs, 8-point underdogs, hearing it all week. I think they're going to come out guns blazing. I don't think they win. I think Penn State will. Same with Indiana. Indiana has nothing to lose. So I think you're going to see some really just tough matchups early on, and you're going to play 4 really tough games.
Talk to me, Levi says, talk to me about Ohio State's passing game. Is it quick shots to the edge, shots over the top? Do they like to hit the middle? What is go-to for the passing game? All right, so you have two different things there. They do like to get the ball out relatively quick, but it's not like fire right away. They do like to hit a couple targets to some deep targets to Jeremiah Smith at least a couple times a game. See how that reacts. If they get some success from it, they usually go back to it. Against Michigan, they didn't for some reason, but a lot of over the middle, a lot of the crossing route, a lot of the quick ins, quick outs, and surprisingly, too many throws to the boundary side of the field with multiple receiver sets.
We gotta kill that this weekend, hopefully. But yeah, if Tennessee, if they're going to play a lot of man, you will definitely see a lot of crossing routes. That's Ryan Dave's MO. Zone. There's a lot of zone coverage. I think this is where you really see guys like Ibuka step up. Ibuka's great at finding that window in that zone. Think 10, 12, 14 curl route. You might get a drag here and there. But that's where, to me, Ohio State is its deadliest, when it's that 10 to 16-yard intermediate passing route range. Yes. You start seeing him hit Ibuka and Tate at 12 yards, 14 yards, then they're really cooking.
Howard's deep ball is inconsistent. Sometimes it looks money. Sometimes it's pretty terrible. So you don't know what to expect from that. He could be on having a good day as far as a deep ball, and then all of a sudden he just throws one way out of bounds or way short, way long. Really, really just hard to judge with the deep ball. The hope is that they get it out to him, somewhere in the 30-yard range, 30 to 40-yard range. If you're going to throw a deep ball, I don't think anything over that they're even going to attempt.
No, I wouldn't think so either, unless somebody's wide open.
I wouldn't want them to attempt, to be honest with you. All right. Well, so on their defense, let's see, Ohio State's, what else do we have to get to? We got to the penalty yards. I think we got pretty much to everything. We got to talk about some of the players. We talked about McCoy being a dude, man. That is a hard-hitting corner, someone to watch for. I think he covered Ryan Williams most of the time, but he did get injured, I believe, in that game against Bama, and they had Gibson, I believe, come in, who did a pretty good job. That guy was pretty handsy. He reminded me a lot of Igbinosa, grabbing people, but he didn't get called for many of them. Anything else? Oh, we talked a little bit about how their wide receivers were set up, but how would you defend that as a cornerback? So you have the deep wide receiver all the way almost at the sideline, and you have the slot receiver outside the hashes, pretty close to that deep field receiver.
Yeah, I would look at – I really like a cover two in a situation like that. And, again, this is not what Coach Knowles likes to do. But that cover two, what you're doing is you're kind of neutralizing that threat of that quick slant or the double slants in there. So you're kind of cutting that off, because when you're looking at that outside wide receiver, you've cut off half of his route tree by putting him so close to the edge. You're either working your way in on some type of slant drag route, or he's running the fade. And that cover two, if I'm that DB up close to the line and I got the flat coverage, I can let you go past me. Now, granted, you want to try to hit a 10-yard, 12-yard fade in there. That's probably the Achilles heel of the cover two. But short of that, you're not worried about the deep ball. You can kind of take that coverage. You got that linebacker also fading over there as well. So that's where I'd like. You could start to get in trouble if you start playing man-to-man with coverages like that. I know they love playing man-to-man at Ohio State. But to me, how you neutralize a lot of that is that zone coverage. And you also, I think when you run the ball effectively, I don't know a lot of the stats around this, but probably look at play action quite a bit too. In zone, I feel a little bit better with play action than I do man-to-man.
Yeah. And Doug is hoping Ohio State keeps days close to getting the national title. He keeps getting close. You got to keep in mind, though, they hired a offensive coordinator, took a chance, so you got to give the dude some time to, establish himself as a head coach. Like, he was learning on the job from the start, like what type of head coach you want him to be. And I know that at a place like Ohio State, it's not what you want, but that's what we got. That's what we did. And that was more to save, keep everything intact, keep the coaching staff intact, keep the players intact, and keep the program intact. I mean, they're still continuing to recruit at top 5 classes every year, and it's a well-oiled machine. We just need to get over that hump.
And that's
oh no, and that's kind of where that oh no comes in. Some of those close calls, but no cigar. Ohio State uses the entire field, and if an opponent can't stop a certain play, they will exploit it. Yeah. As far as this is talking about the passing game, I agree. Let's keep Day. He will figure it out. He's young. He's what we need. He's learning. I agree with that. It's just,
but it's
fan base.
Psychological now, man. That this is it. This is not a knock against Ryan Day or whether or not Ryan Day is a good offensive play caller. None of that is true. But there can be a point in time where it's psychological, and you see this all throughout sports, where a player or a coach just looks god awful. He goes to a different team and he flourishes. It's not always about the different team. It's a psychological
reset.
It's a change. Yeah. So this isn't a knock against Ryan Day. God forbid Tennessee wins and Ryan Day gets fired. This is not Ryan Day will never coach again or Ryan Day is terrible. He could go to LSU or something in a few years and win a national title. It just may not be the right time and the right fit for him. But the beauty of this year, as opposed to last year, is he has a chance to write the script however he wants.
Yep. Totally redeem himself.
Yep.
Tennessee has not been great in the red zone versus good teams, and Ohio State is great in the red zone as far as the defense. Tennessee has been good on defense in the red zone, though, too.
Yeah, and
they were like,
honestly, I think that's
were
where
they
the
like
game.
top 10?
I want to say 16th or maybe. Oh no, I have it here, 13th. So Tennessee's defense is 13th in the nation, but Ohio State's won. And I think the story of this game is ultimately going to come down to the red zone. And if you look back at the Michigan game, it came down to the red zone there. 3 of the 4 turnovers in the red zone.
Mm-hmm. This should be the best game of the first round games. I absolutely believe that too. I can't wait for it. I can't believe the ticket prices are what they are. We're about to get into that in a second. I hope Ohio State rotates on the defensive line early and often. Something we talked about too. We love the rotation on the defensive line. Something Knowles talked about in his press conference too. If you didn't catch it all, he did say that's really up to Johnson. Like, I have trust in my coaches in the specialty positions, whatever they coach. I believe Johnson just has a lot of respect for his years in the field, for what he has done developing, and he doesn't like to rotate. However, Ohio State has the pieces to rotate. They need to rotate. Those defensive linemen were getting gassed at the end of the game against Michigan. Why not rotate? I think they need. I do. The good guys need to play a lot, but rotate. Those guys have earned the right, especially K-Mac, Caden Curry.
It just doesn't make any.
They all deserve to rotate.
Any sense, especially along the defensive line, to not rotate. You need fresh bodies in the fourth quarter. It's not a respect thing or a disrespect thing. It's simply about, I need your legs fresh in the fourth quarter.
Howard's last 4 of 5 games, his longest pass is 32 yards. Howard isn't good enough to beat this team.
That's the beauty of Ohio State's offense.
I don't believe that he's good enough. He just can't make mistakes. And
it's not
offensive coordinator can't put him in positions to make more mistakes.
I think Will Howard is capable of successfully hitting wide receivers within 25 yards. Long ball is a different conversation, but it's not about Will Howard beating Tennessee. It's about Will Howard getting the ball to elite playmakers to beat Tennessee. And that comes down to coaching.
And Doug, you're absolutely right. That's the weak link on the defensive side is the linebackers. And I do believe Ohio State will try to exploit it. If they don't, I'm going to be a really mad man. I'm going to be a really frustrated dude. And you'll see that come out on our Sunday morning show for sure. If they don't exploit the middle of the field, there's something wrong. I mean, something does have to change because it's obvious. That's the obvious weakness. Everyone was targeting it. Georgia did, but I think Alabama, to a greater extent, Alabama just didn't capitalize on some of the turnovers that they had, and they turned the ball over too.
I feel almost like we're recycling all the things we were saying leading up into the Michigan game for this game. Really good defensive line, kind of linebackers, secondary without Will Johnson maybe being the weaker side. And we're talking about all these things. Okay, get the ball to your playmakers, go put up a bunch of points and win the game. That's where, again, I'm seeing a lot of similarities in this Tennessee game. Yeah. To me, the question isn't how do you exploit it or anything like that. It's will the coaching staff put this team in a position to do it? Now, again, you start going out and Will Howard throws 3 first-half turnovers, I'll start to hear those arguments a little bit more that it's a Will Howard problem. He really hasn't shown that much.
All the home teams lose. I don't think Indiana stands a chance against Notre Dame. Although it would be exciting, I would love to see it, but I really don't think so. I don't think MSU has a chance. Clemson and Texas might be more interesting than you realize. Maybe Clemson's coming along, but also Clemson beat SMU.
You know,
there's got to be one. There's got to be one Cinderella team, right? There's always got to be one.
No, there doesn't. And
you know what? I'm going with Indiana. If I have to pick a Cinderella team, it's Indiana.
I'll tell you what. You want a Cinderella pick?
Mm-hmm.
I think Notre Dame can win it all. to be honest with you. That is one of the hottest teams in college football right now, having won 10 straight games. And granted, it's a little tough to see Army, Navy, USC. I get it. So it would be nice to see what they do against a real matchup. But you're getting reports today. Beck might not even play in the playoffs at all. So Notre Dame's next game against Georgia is going to be against Stockton. So you could really easily see a path where Notre Dame doesn't play a tough game until they play Penn State, and Penn State's no juggernaut. So seeing a path for Notre Dame to get to the finals would not be unrealistic.
For sure. The Vols defensive line knocked out like 6 quarterbacks this year. Howard is fixing to get hit a bunch. They're going to get pressure. They do. Yeah. They do a really good job. The thing about Howard is he's tough, he's big, and hopefully he runs the ball a lot more than he usually does. And when those DNs come crashing, hopefully he can split up the middle of the pocket and take it outside. This is the best team to win the Natty. Put it together, and let's win the Natty. I want to throw this in Jonathan Olden's face. Champs. I don't know who Jonathan is.
Neither do I. I was waiting for you to tell me who he was.
But, slants across the middle, about 5 yards. Linebackers have a hard time in coverage. That with a running quarterback tends to be a problem for Tennessee. Do it in the first half.
Yeah. Howard's not he's not a huge runner. He's quick.
He can be, but
he can.
And he's a little bit stoic until he gets going. He's actually deceptively fast, but it takes him a while to get going up to the top speed.
You and our friends have debated about this when we always wanted Stroud to run the ball, and people were saying they told Stroud not to run the ball. You're starting to see this a little bit more with Ryan Day. He's just not in a situation where his quarterbacks run effectively. I mean,
I do believe that Ryan Day uses a beard dye. Yes, I do believe so. But when your coach literally looks like a cartoon, it's just funny to me. There's nothing wrong with him. I mean, the dude's a great coach. Awesome coach.
Heupel's, he's a great coach.
Yeah. The culture of the team is top-notch. They defend each other. I give you that. The High State DB's got to watch out for Thornton. 10 to 20-yard post routes. A lot of Nico's long passes have been on those routes. We have really good safeties, so those post routes might not be available. Our safeties are good, man. They're legit. Like consensus All-American, and I think 3.
No, you can say you have the best safety in the country in Caleb Downs. I mean,
for sure.
I have no problem saying that.
And Latham Ransom isn't far behind.
So good.
I think he got second team All-American. Might have got a couple of first team.
Very good.
Yeah. Football definitely requires some luck. Someone was talking about tickets, and I wanted to get to that. There it goes. Doug. All right. 7 of Ohio State's opponents are rated 100 or worse on offense. Ohio State's defensive stats are inflated based on those 7 opponents. I don't really think Tennessee's.
I'll listen to it. I'll listen to it.
But I don't think Tennessee's schedule is that great either.
Yeah, I'm
not. Georgia and Alabama, and what else?
You can go listen to past episodes where we just rant and rave about strength of schedule and all of that. I think there is some validity to that. I don't think Penn State and Drew Auer are a legit offense whatsoever. Obviously, Michigan had an atrocious offense this year. Oregon's probably the best offense in the country. You still give up 32, so that's not a great win. It's good. You held them under 50, I guess. Nebraska, not a strong offense. So I definitely see where Fred's coming from there. I don't want to debate it, but again, I think this is a really funny year in college football where you're just not seeing these elite teams emerging. I think this is one of the best years for a 12-team playoff because outside of Oregon, it's kind of Oregon and 11 other really good teams. So
this is interesting. Tennessee will sell out to stop the run and make Howard win or lose a game. I hope that that's the case because I don't really trust our run game that much. I hope that's what Ohio State's defense does and stops Dylan Sampson because he's legit, man.
I think Chip Kelly's going to learn. I think he's not going to completely abandon the run, but I don't think he's going to come in wanting to run the ball a lot. He's going to get the ball to the playmakers. And if you're telling me you're putting 7-8 guys in the box and you're putting one-on-one on Jeremiah Smith, I'll take my chances with a mediocre quarterback. Not that I'm saying Howard is, but just throw it near Smith, he'll get it.
Yeah, Tennessee didn't have too much of a non-conference schedule either. They did try, however, NC State ended up being terrible. You can try to sub if you want, but Tennessee's tempo is gonna wait for you to try to sub and then snap it. You have to actually give them, depending on, but you could sub different possessions, right? So that's the way I would do it.
The problem we're talking about from Ohio State perspective is Ohio State doesn't sub. That's our
they just don't do it. Yeah.
We want them to sub. So, that's not going to be a huge factor here. But I think to TJ's point, if Tennessee is playing that tempo the first 3-4 series, you're going to really burn out that D line, because that was the argument I was making for Ohio State, is how you neutralize a really great defensive line that Tennessee has. You play tempo, and you just keep playing and make them do that, because eventually you're going to wear them down.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you get into some of this ticket talk, man? You've been blowing up my phone all day while I've had meetings. I know you're losing your mind over it.
Dude, it was surprising the hell out of me. I cannot believe this. And Tennessee fans were shocked about. All right, where was that at? I lost the comment. Anyway, someone was talking about how they paid and they wish they would have waited. I believe it was Doug.
That was a while back. I forget who had mentioned that to us. Maybe.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
it was Doug.
Yeah,
I was like, I paid $3.19 for a seat in C-Deck. I don't care. I'm going to have a blast.
Yes, you will. I spent a lot of time in C-Deck.
Because now you could literally, I think what I saw, 150. So you could have paid half that now, and tomorrow probably even less, and then Saturday, day of the game, even less than that, I believe. So with that ticket, $3.19, you probably could have been sitting 40-yard line, A-deck, maybe even close to the 50. Because that's crazy. Those are crazy prices. What is the factor that's leading? Is it because it's the week before Christmas?
No.
Is it because the students are out? Is it because Ohio State fans are pissed off?
Yes. It's a morale problem right now.
Is it because it's the playoff and there's the opportunity for people that live in Arizona or Texas or Florida or California to wait and see if they come there later? So why spend the money now if you live in California and you can go visit them in the Rose Bowl if they make it?
Well, we've talked about this a lot, and we're old, but we're not super old, and maybe we sound like get off our lawn people. But you and I sat beside each other 2006, Ohio State, Michigan 1 versus 2. It was one of the most electric atmospheres I've ever been in my life, and I get it, 1 versus 2. But when we were going to school, going to games, even a Northwestern game at noon, it was loud for that first half until everybody started making their way to the bars. It just seemed like the crowd was a lot more engaged and a lot more electric. And I haven't been back there in about 12 years or so, but just talking to fans and people that have gone back in the last decade, just telling me it's not the same atmosphere. It's not the same noise level and all this stuff. And so I think you're seeing that with Ohio State over the last decade, just not that hostile atmosphere that you typically see, let's say, in the SEC or other places. And you're pairing that with this serious morale problem we have right now, where everyone's wondering, okay, what happens if they lose this game? And nobody wants to really be in that stadium to be around for that experience. And we can also talk about the fact you and I have been to a lot of neutral site games over the last decade. Ohio State seems to travel exceptionally well to neutral site games, and they're pretty darn loud at neutral site games. I felt like a lot of times like it was a home environment in Dallas or the Rose Bowl I was at a few years ago. It was probably 70-30 Ohio State fans, and they were playing Washington, a West Coast team. So Ohio State tends to travel extremely well to neutral site games, but we're not seeing as strong as a home field advantage as we have seen probably a decade prior. So I think you pair all that with the fact that we are really down on this team at the moment, and that's probably why you're seeing ticket prices the way they are.
And they said Beck, TJ Bird just said, Beck got back from, I believe that's an ulnar collateral ligament, which is in your elbow, not your shoulder, but prepping for Stockton in their first game.
I just
which
saw him.
I think it's Tommy John's too.
They just said that they're preparing to be without Beck for the CFP. That's what the ESPN ticker said. They didn't say.
If it's an honor collateral litigate, he's not going to be back.
I guess they technically don't have a first game matchup defined yet, so maybe they're being coy with that.
This is good stuff. I subscribe to the show. Great show.
Thank you, Titan.
If we lose, pulling for the Buckeyes for the Natty, you know what?
Vice versa, man. Tennessee wins, beat Oregon, man. Beat Oregon. I will be a big Vols fan that following week.
I would pull for probably Penn State if Ohio State loses.
Oh, you shut your mouth, man. Come on.
Penn State deserves their time in the sun, man.
No,
but yeah, it's good to see Tennessee back. I think Tennessee's got a great program, great tradition. Like a lot of things about Tennessee. Like their fan base is kind of nasty and getting after it on Twitter. Fun to see.
No, it's a good one.
And the fact that they're showing up and buying tickets in the show.
Bro, we'll just root for the Sun Devils, man. If Ohio State gets bounced, that seems pretty neutral to me. Plus, their campus is awesome.
Oh, this will be interesting. Vegas, Las Vegas had a bet line, and it got removed because people were calling it headhunting. They knocked out a few quarterbacks. Doug got the IO and Brando. Get in here, Brando. What happened to Hypo after he stopped playing football? I don't know, man. He turned into Bobby.
Nah, man.
What do you think? Who do you think is a more physical team? It depends. If you're talking defense, probably Ohio State. If you're talking offense, probably Tennessee.
I mean, I don't know, Fred. I'll tell you right now, that answer gets decided on Saturday night. I don't. Physicality.
Don't know until you hit the field.
Yeah. TJ's right.
Yeah, $110, man. This is just insane. I've never seen anything like it. Never thought I ever would in my whole fandom of Ohio State. I used to go to a lot of games and buy tickets to a lot of games.
Let me ask you this. Let's say Ohio State was a 5 seed, right? They beat Michigan.
Yeah, and that's consistent. What Jason Johnson's saying, that's consistent for Ohio State. Maybe not 400 for up in the C deck or D deck, but you're paying $225 for bad teams for tickets. And I think this year it's been a little bit less than that, but consistently it's not cheap to go to an Ohio State game either.
But let's also talk about this too, because we've talked about this quite a bit. And we have a buddy of ours who used to work at the Schottenstein, which is the basketball arena for Ohio State. One of the things Bork has said since taking over as the AD is one of the things he wants to do is he wants to renovate Ohio Stadium. And one of the big renovations he wants to make is he wants to put a bunch of suites in. Now, suites get you a lot of money, but as you and I were talking, one of the best thing about suites is you're taking all those rich people, the older people, maybe not your loud people, who are taking up seats in the stadium, and they're going up to the suites, entertaining, having the time of their lives. And maybe you're filling in that backfill with kind of the average Joe like you and I who wants to buy a ticket and can be louder in that stadium. And we saw this a lot with the Schottenstein for the Ohio State basketball. Playing basketball there was like being in a mausoleum because you had 80-year-olds all around the first 10 rows of the basketball arena because they've been alumni donors for 50, 60 years, and they didn't make a peep. It was never a home field or a home court advantage for basketball. So I was always curious when Bork said that. I thought it was a money-making scheme, but now you start playing it a little bit more, and maybe it's about getting these rich donors and alumni up in the seats and getting some louder fans in the stadium. What are your thoughts around that?
My thought is Sloops specifically is referencing you. He said, because the student section is soft, too many participation trophies, stop it, put your shoes on, and get that killer instinct, pussies.
Reminds me
exactly of Vegas.
People ask me about that all the time. They're like, do you guys do that? I'm like, I never took off my shoe once in my life.
No, never. That's something new.
It fell off due to, inebriation, but I never took it off intentionally.
And jumping around.
Yeah.
We did not sit still during a game. I mean, we were moving all over the place. We ended up in multiple different rows when we were students there.
Oh, absolutely. And Brando, I think you're hitting on exactly the point I'm trying to make.
Exactly.
Prices. It pissed a lot of people off. And I think we're all reeling from that loss. And I think, and you've even heard people like, Paul Feinbaum say this, Day loses this game, I don't think he's going to get fired on the field. He's being a little dramatic, but that could be the case. And so I think Ohio State needs this win more than anything, just to kind of clear the bad air and get on.
And that's it, Fred. Ohio State season ended for a bunch of fans when they lost to Michigan. You're absolutely true. It's like it's hard to get back into it, and we're all still a little pissed. I still don't realize how I would feel about a national title.
Let's not read that one, man. We don't need to go down.
Still funny.
No, it's fun, man. We appreciate it. We try to keep it on the up and up on the show here, man.
I try not to.
Fred's point was spot on, and it's honestly how I feel. If I was in Columbus, I would go just because being an alumni and passionate, but I wouldn't be happy about going. I would just be nervous and anxious, and I told you this when you asked me last Tuesday, am I excited for this game? And I said, no, I'm not excited. I'll be excited Saturday night at 9 o'clock my time. If Ohio State wins, then I can breathe and I can feel good. But
this is interesting. I don't think anyone's going to care that your O lineman from East St. Louis is going to plant the flag. No one cares because it's not Michigan. It's not going to be that big a deal. And being from East St. Louis isn't that hard because I've partied in East St. Louis, and obviously it wasn't that big a deal. But if they rush the field, that's not going to end well for them as far as jail time.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the planning the taking the field goal post to the Olympics.
Not going to do that. Been on top of those jumping. They're not coming down.
First off, I have been on the field several times. Their staff has that on lockdown. They know exactly what they're
since
doing.
2002, when people were on the goalpost jumping, they weren't going anywhere.
I've seen them.
Those weren't coming down. Those were designed specifically.
But I've seen them grease. I've seen them grease before. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
They're about 15 feet of concrete. Also, the second that game ends, you have about 40 people around each goalpost and kind of
and they make a triangle.
It's a triangle.
3 rows deep.
You're not getting anywhere. And I'll tell you right now, the second you lay a finger on one of them, you got about 7 cops that will tackle you. So
the thing about the high ticket prices, Doug, is they're not high right now. So the people that make noise better buy them up, and they're not.
See, Jason, I like that, man. And Neyland's kind of taking that NFL model where you're no longer just having a stadium, you're kind of having a town center or a suite. So Jason was talking about Neyland Stadium putting up a hotel in a few years. I think it's a really smart idea.
Yeah. Nobody's going to plant the flag. They might plant the flag and no one's going to care, but the Tennessee fans will be sleeping at Riverside or Grant.
I used to live on Riverside. Watch it there, man.
There's a way the stadium sounds when Generation X is going nuts in their 20s versus the new kids. Yeah,
he's right. And
Texas, when Texas came to town, that stadium was loud. When Gamble got that interception return to a touchdown, it was loud. I've never heard it that loud since. I believe USC, when they came to town, it was pretty loud too.
That was one of the loud. Texas, definitely in 2005. That was a crazy game. Awesome game. The USC game, again, Texas USC won those games. Those were incredibly loud. Been to some Penn State games that were really good as well, too. So I have heard it. And again, I haven't been back in 12 years, so I'm not going to sit here and say that I've heard it firsthand. But I remember a buddy of mine that lives up here. He went to the Ohio State-Oregon game in 2021. Now, granted, that was a noon kickoff. But he came back and he's like, man, I'm incredibly disappointed.
Swish on here says he couldn't believe it. I'm flabbergasted. I don't even know. I can't comprehend how low the ticket prices are. This is the top 10 matchup, the first ever playoff game in the shoe. I really think students being gone, it being right before Christmas, and that Michigan loss have all contributed to it, with a small faction of people not coming because they are hoping that Ohio State travels to them or closer to them for one of the playoff games later, because, people are going to want to go to those sunny spots. So they're saving their dime for that. And now they don't really need to just go buy tickets to the game because it's cheap.
2 Jumbotrons now.
Nice.
We
got to catch up and get another Jumbotron.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Or of course you got the owner of the Cleveland Browns, Jimmy.
Jumbotron runs at 480p. It's the worst part of the stadium.
Obviously, Tennessee alumni, so he can probably throw a lot of money.
Beer prices. All right. Yeah, that zip code is cute. Go get a hoodie, bro.
I got two.
I thought, zip up. I said zip code. You don't like a zip up? Come on, man.
It's all good. It's all good.
I like zip ups. I like the zippies with a hoodie.
I mean, behind the curtain, I don't have a lot of time here before the show
Students
starts.
Go home for Christmas as well. Yeah.
Wardrobe changes, so the zip up's nice because I can just kind of throw it on and roll with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, we know they're not going to take it. They're not going to be able to.
It's all good.
I like the trolling. The trolling part.
Yeah. I have no problem with that. Tennessee
kills me. Everyone in the media is still talking about weather, and it's like, this makes zero sense. Like, they even asked Will Howard about the weather and if they're more prepared with the weather, and he was like, looked at them like they're dumb because it was a dumb question. Why are we bringing that up? Tennessee is not south, right? They're 2 states below us, and they're in the mountains.
You and I both playing in cold weather, man. Did you care when you were playing in cold weather?
No, once you get warmed up, everything's cool. Like, you start sweating.
You played in rain, right?
After you do push-ups.
Would you rather play in 50 degrees in pouring rain or 25 degrees in clear with no wind? I'd rather play in 25 degrees.
Well, it depends. I was a running back, so I didn't give a shit what the weather was like. It was fine for me. Either way,
I know, but I'm just saying the cold doesn't really bother you.
The rain
bothers you.
Bother footing, yeah.
And snow definitely.
Part of me think it may be Christmas time that kind of killed the making new travel plans and people coming to visit their families, so they're starting that weekend. So that may be part of it being low. Yeah, I think the playoff in general, they're real low prices, so they're gonna have to rethink that.
Not as much now. He's still. I'm sure he donates generously, Jason. I'm sure, and we have that. Our jumbotron in Huntington Bank Field looks like the shape of Tennessee. I don't think that's by accident. So I have that little reminder every time I watch a game.
All right, man. I think that we have done ourselves in with an hour and a half show. So I got to get up in the morning and work, man. Got to get ready for this game on Saturday night too. So, hey, if any of y'all are going to the game, let me know where you'll be beforehand, and we'll meet up, man.
And check back in.
I won't be partying, but
right?
Yeah, check back in Sunday morning. We always do a morning after show, so anytime Ohio State's playing, we do a 9:30 a.m. show to kind of recap everything, get our thoughts out. Usually our best show, so come on in. And Jason says, "Go Vols!" Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Man.
He actually go back home. Get out of Columbus.
A lot of good. A
lot of good interaction.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Especially on our show, man. The Vols fans have been awesome.
No, they've been
really some insight.
Helping out.
Fun talking to y'all. So yeah, either way, come and join us Sunday morning, the morning after show. All right. We got a couple more questions, and we're going to bounce out of here. When you first come to the field from the locker room, it's cold. After that, no big deal. Exactly. Yeah. Until you get the warm-ups in, no big deal. And then when you come out after halftime, after you're all sweaty, yeah, that's no fun. But I'm sure at this big-time ball, which is not what I played, they have a new uniform, new undergarments, and everything ready to go. Anyway, Buckeye backers are out. Thank you all for joining us. We've had tons of comments and a lot of people joining the show for a Thursday night. It's been great. Subscribe and have a good time. Anyone going to Columbus, hope you have a great time. For you Vols fans, God bless everyone. Join us the morning after. Subscribe, particularly on YouTube. We need YouTube. All right? Peace out. God bless.